Hey friends, welcome to the Aeroponic Tower channel, and today I'm going to bring you guys into the kitchen as we preserve some of the harvest from the garden. So I do things a little bit differently. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Stephanie and I grow food using revolutionary methods for the home gardener. So I was a gardener for 20 plus years. I've grown using permaculture, back to Eden practices, raised beds, traditional gardening, tilling the soil, all the things. Double dig method, that one's a lot of work. And I moved away from soil gardening for a few reasons, and I've shared that in the past, but mainly resources and labor became too much for the yield I was getting. It just didn't justify the amount of work. I also don't like to have a ton of food come in at one time, be overwhelmed with it, a lot of it spoils, or I have to can. I wanted to have access to replacing the grocery store every single day, 365 days a year. So I got into aeroponics, I grow mushrooms, things like that. Sometimes there is excess harvest, and so I am putting away some of that. But really, the stuff I have excess of, I'm preserving in a way that we use as food consistently. So hot peppers, for example, we're going to be making some things with hot peppers. I grow hot peppers year round so that I always have access to fresh hot peppers or can dry them as I need them for recipes. But I also want to make a few things out of them. So I've been collecting them and dehydrating them so we can turn them into a product I'm going to share with you guys. It's actually what I'm going to be giving away as Christmas gifts for some people as well. So today we're going to be making just a few things that are staples in our home, and I thought I'd take you guys along and just show you some of the things that you can make with your homegrown produce. All right, some of the things I'm making today are just food for today. So I'm gonna make some dal. And I do base what I'm cooking daily off of what we need to eat that's coming out of the garden. And I have turnips and some peppers that need to be eaten, and I love both of those in dal. So these are split mung beans. This is a yellow mung bean that is split. It's one of my favorite to use for dal. I buy most of our bulk at Azure Standard. These are not at Azure. You have to get them at an Indian store, but I have Indian friends that know how to make Indian food, and they taught me to use these, and they weren't wrong. They're so good. Okay, so I've been making over the kitchen. So from this side over, it's almost done. I'm going to hang a shelf or something. This side over, it's kind of crazy, so excuse the mess. But I use a 3-quart Instapot for a lot of things. And part of this kitchen renovation is making it more functional for a whole foods plant-based diet, just from cooking from scratch. It requires, I feel like, different setup than traditional cabinets allow. So I keep this Instapot on the counter full time, and we use it every single day. I learned early on from another plant-based expert, said, you know, make rice and beans every day, and that's a base, and it keeps you from getting too hungry or not having anything to make. So I can always add what's growing in the towers to a base like that to make a meal really quickly. And so I love the 3-quart because it's daily. We can use it. If there's any leftovers, it's just a tiny bit that can go to the chickens. And I found when I use big ones, especially because I'm not cooking meat, it just creates too much food and then it goes to waste. So I have my 3-quart Instapot. I'll link this below. And I'm just gonna put my lentils in there. I've rinsed them a couple of times. I guess they're mung beans, not lentils. I rinsed them a couple of times, and then I have about an inch of water over the top. And I'm gonna just pressure cook them for about 13 minutes. All right, over here I have some shishito peppers. So there's a few ways to eat this. You can blister them and make an olé sauce. I have a video where I did that. Sometimes I like to dip them in my sourdough discard, which I keep up here on my stove. It's firm right now, so it's not running because I just fed it. But I like it when it's running, and you would typically just throw that away. I batter things in that, and it makes the most amazing tempura ever. So I do that with those a lot. And then I just use these in Mexican recipes. They are so delicious, really ramp up meals. So I'm not sure. I have about 4 times this amount on my plants right now, so I need to turn these into something. A lot of times I will dehydrate them and then preserve them in a jar, crumble them up, preserve them in a jar, and just add them to like chili, or if I'm making a Mexican bean soup, they're great to toss into those. But my dehydrator's full with other peppers, so I think we're just gonna turn these into something for dinner, but I'm not sure yet, so I'll let you know. I would really love to do, they'd make great enchiladas, but I'm not doing Mexican tonight, so we'll see. We're just gonna leave these on the counter. They can stay on the counter until I decide what to do with them. And if they start to dry out, that's totally fine too. Like this one's actually starting to dry. Then I can just turn them into those pepper flakes I mentioned, and they're fine. So I do keep them in, this is one of my sprouting baskets, a basket that has airflow, just in case I don't get to them. I did make a huge quiche for the children, Mexican quiche for the children last night, and used about double this in the recipe. So we'll just see. For now, just so you know, you can just let peppers dry and turn them into pepper flakes or pepper chunks. I like these a little chunkier to add to recipes later if you don't have a use for them. And shishitos are a pepper I can grow year round because they will grow inside, but they definitely grow slower indoors than outside. Outside they are just... All right, for our next project, and we do have a lot of appliances out. I keep my grain mill put away, but most everything else I keep on the counters because we're using them pretty much every day. And it just, I have found when you put things away, you don't use them. So if they're out and they're in sight, then I'm constantly looking around, what can we make? What can we turn into food? I have all these things off the gardens. Oh, okay, let's use the Vitamix and make some smoothies for breakfast. This is our bubbly water maker. I have a few bubbly water addicts in the house, but we're gonna use the Vitamix today to create hot pepper honey. And this is something I absolutely love to eat. I'm also gonna be doing some hot pepper oils, not today, but I'm dehydrating. You probably hear it. If you hear that fan in the background, it's my dehydrator. And I'm drying other peppers for hot pepper oil blends. But this is honey, a raw, good quality honey. And I've been adding peppers to this jar and they ferment. So fresh peppers, so that they'll ferment. And I've got a weight in there and it just keeps the peppers below the honey. It's very liquidy because it's fermented and the peppers have put off some juice. That adds a great probiotic to this, but it didn't make it spicy enough, which it won't. There's not enough peppers in there to the honey ratio. So now what I'm gonna do is grind up this assortment of hot peppers that I grew. I don't even know all the varieties. Actually, I need a couple of these for a couple of chilies we need to pull back. And I have chilies somewhere else, but I'm gonna pull out 3 of these for our dal. The rest, there's habaneros in here, all sorts of different varieties. Some dried jalapenos. This is what a dried jalapeno looks like. That was a notapino or a potapino, so it's a small one. So just gonna turn this into ground pepper, and then I'm gonna add it to my honey. And I'm gonna keep doing this until it's really full of pepper flakes, pretty much equal parts pepper flakes to honey, and then it'll be ready. I will put it in small jars and give it away as gifts for Christmas and then use a ton of it. It's so good. I will also pull out the fermented peppers before I add this, just because they have a soft texture and we want this to be like a pour over. Like you would spoon it out and drizzle it and you'd have all the pepper flakes in there with the honey, and so those will get in the way. I'll use them in recipes, but I'm going to put them in a separate jar before I add this. Some of these are real hot, some are mild, and just blending them all together just gives an amazing flavor. I have found I like to mix peppers when I'm doing things. I like single pepper recipes too, but this is just easier because you end up with a lot of random peppers. You know, you might get 5 habaneros and 5 chilies. That's not really enough to do anything with, but when you add all the different ones together, you can dry them out like this on a tray and make it something incredible. Okay, Be careful when you breathe. Because this, whoo, yep, I'm gonna air it out outside because it will, it will get you. And you can blend it outside if you're more sensitive. All right, when that's airing out, I'm gonna fish out these peppers. This can be messy. Okay, these are amazing. They actually are dry. These are gonna be great in recipes. I don't want to use them in this. Well, I don't know. Let me see. Actually, I'm gonna leave them in here. I don't know. Some of them aren't dry, like this one. I may add them back. I can't decide. I'm being indecisive. These are all small bits. I'm definitely going to leave those in there. There's some crystallized honey at the bottom, so I'm going to stir that up. And then let's add our peppers. Oh man, that looks amazing. So we have enough space at the bottom for a little bit more, but this did a good job. We want about equal parts peppers to honey. And then I am going to toss back in a few of these really pretty ones and some of these small gourmet ones, because why not? They just look so beautiful. Let's do some yellows. Okay, a little bit sticky, but I added some of those peppers back in, and I'll pull out one and put them in the jars as I make this into Christmas gifts. There's a little room for more peppers down here, and there's more room for honey. But for now, this is stable. These are dried herbs, so I'm not worried about having them underneath the honey. Or they're dried peppers, excuse me, so I'm not worried about them underneath the honey. So we're just gonna put this back. I'm gonna go rinse off the outside, wash my hands, and we're just gonna let this sit because we want the oils in the peppers to infuse into the honey. And that's gonna take, you know, at least a couple of weeks to make it nice and strong. And I hear our tomatillos. Actually, I hear the Instapot. All right, so we have these dried honey peppers. Not sure what I'm gonna do with these yet. So for now, I'm just gonna stick them in a jar. All right, over here, this is where all my spices are for now. I don't know. I haven't decided what I want to go up here. Probably just a shelf, not very much up here, just maybe one little shelf. If anything, I like it open. But I have my Indian spices and specialty spices in here. This is our salt, curry leaves. This is a deeper cabinet or a deeper piece of furniture. This is all furniture, which allows me to keep things in the back that typically would get cluttery, but I have an extra 5 inches for things like these, and then still have the normal counter space to work with. So I'm just gonna stick these up here. Well, they won't fit there. I'm gonna stick them right here. And that way they're in sight. So if I'm making something, I like honey and peppers in a lot of Asian recipes. So if I'm making something this week, I'll know these are the peppers we want to use if I want that sweet and spicy thing. Okay, the tomatillas are almost done. I'm gonna give them another minute. This stove runs like a wood burning stove. So it's gas, but it comes from a wood burning stove company, and it's designed to cook like a wood stove would if you had fire logs in it. We just have propane instead of logs. We actually have a wood burning stove. They're just too hard for our climate. You can't keep them going all the time. It's just too hot. So it cooks different. So while I'm waiting on those, We are going to pickle some banana peppers, but we need to finish a loaf of bread first. So I'm going to show you guys my go-to everyday bread recipe that I make for the children. Bread at the grocery store has some of the worst things you can put in your body. I did a deep dive, Google hair and bread. That'll make you sick. And it's not like, oops, a piece of hair fell into the bread. It's actually, they're taking hair from barbershops in another country and turning it into a product that goes into bread that's being manufactured here. It's so disgusting. So anyway, we make bread. It's super easy. I use a Zojirusi. I'll link my bread machine below. I've had it for 10 years, more than 10 years. I've had it for 12 years and I bought it used on eBay. I use it, I would say, at least 5 times a week. The only thing I've ever had to replace are the paddles, and I did have to replace the bread loaf pan once because it got jammed up, but then my husband took it apart and fixed it, and so it still works. So now I just have a backup. So this is what the insert is, and in there I have my mixture. So what I do, and this is out of my bread machine, but you can do this right in your bread machine. You don't ever have to take this out. I typically just walk over and do it over there. But today, because I'm filming, I wanted to take it over here because it's just easier to put the stuff in it. So this is 1 cup warm water, 3 tablespoons sugar. I use an organic white sugar. That's what I prefer, but you can use honey or maple syrup or molasses. It just changes the flavor of the bread. And I'm going for a classic grocery store white bread because children, right? And then I use 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. So this isn't a sourdough loaf. You can make sourdough in these, but it's just a yeast bread. And I would say start at 2 and work your way up. Your yeast will depend on your elevation. We are higher up here. When I was in Florida, I used 2 teaspoons, maybe 2.25. For a loaf here, it takes about 2.5 teaspoons to get the rise that I like on this bread. So that's what's in here. I let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes and get bubbly. That tells me my yeast is alive, and it just activates the yeast and brings it back to life. And now we're gonna add the rest of the ingredients. And this is my 5-gallon bucket of organic all-purpose flour from Azure. It's actually gonna live in the new section over here, so it's not so hard to pull out every time because I use it every day. I have another bucket of things back there, and I'll keep stuff back here that we don't use as often. But I want this to be a little bit more accessible because I've noticed I'm having to like really struggle to get it out. So we're gonna add, it just makes it easier. We're gonna add 3 cups of flour. This is a half a cup. So I'm gonna add 6 of these. And I top this off regularly, so we always have flour to use every day. I'll link Azure. I have other videos on that on a playlist if you want to see them. Orzo pasta from Azure. It's more affordable for us to buy in bulk. And I like to have food on stock at all times for preparedness purposes, you know, illnesses, job loss, emergencies, big things. And so I can make food from scratch because it's easy to make these things. Like I didn't have a plan. None of this was planned ahead of time. I just woke up and thought, I need to preserve some food. Let's knock that out. I'm kind of cleaning as I go because I've got other things to do today. So this is just like preparing the food for tonight. I've got dinner cooking over here too. Preparing dinner as well with the doll. I have another meal preparing for lunch for the children. So this is just preparing and staying on top of things, and having all the supplies just makes it so easy to not have to think very much about it and just look around and go, okay, we have these things that need to be used up. What are we gonna make? All right, we need to add our oil. I use avocado oil since we are cooking this. 3 tablespoons. Again, buy in bulk, so we're never without what we need. And we need a tablespoon of salt. This is Redmond's Real Salt. It's one of my favorite, and I get this at Azure as well, or directly on the website. This is about a teaspoon. And you can see, obviously, not worried about this being super precise when it comes to the oil and salt. All right, now we put it in our bread machine. All right, so limited space in this kitchen. Again, why I chose furniture, because I find it to be more effective at storage. This was off Facebook Marketplace. It was like $150. It was an old china cabinet, had a hutch. But it had this cool opening, and so I specifically chose it for this opening for my bread machine, because I didn't have anywhere to put it at the time. This is so much more functional than drawers for this purpose. And I'm actually going to hang a little curtain over here as part of the renovation. I do have to run a plug over here, which means I have to turn off my light. All right. And again, that noise you hear is my dehydrator. It's still peppery over here. All right. This machine has lots of different settings. So you could do sourdough starter. You've got jams, cake. I've never done any of that. Then you've got your basic bread, a quick bread, wheat bread, and just dough if you just want to mix up some dough that you're going to cook differently. I've done that for sourdough before. And you can do light, medium, or dark. And so that's it. I do the same thing all the time. So I put it on medium and basic bread and hit start. So 3 hours and 45 minutes, this will be done. If I forgot to do it and I need it in a hurry, I'll do quick bread, which is about 2.5 hours. Our dal beat, it is done. I'm gonna pull the tomatillas out. Dishes I'm using are Pampered Chef. I'll link my friend's account below where I get these. I love, because we're not gonna have any, basically we're not gonna have any closed cabinets when I'm done with the kitchen. Everything will be open and exposed. So having things that look good matters. Having things that cook good really matters. And then having multi-purposes for things was really important, because I will only be able to have very, very limited amount of cooking, I don't know, what do you call them, pans and things in this kitchen, because it's a small kitchen and we're taking out all the cabinets. Can't really hide, like in here's a disaster. You can hide all kinds of things in there that we never use. So I just got some new ones because I've loved the stone for so long. So they're white now, but they will age, and they are just so beautiful. Brand new and as they age, which I love things that age well. Like this stove. It's got some rusty, crusty parts, and it just makes it look better. All right, those are amazing and bubbly. And this particular one, they have these lids, so I can, our bottom is actually a real warmer. It stays warm because of the way this functions like a wood stove. You can actually cook in there, it gets so warm. So I can put these in there, like if I have a casserole to wait for dinner to keep it warm. So you've got the lid. A lot of times I just leave food right out. I prepare a lot of food and I just stick it out because we don't always eat it at the same time, and sometimes lunch is what's for dinner. We're eating the same thing all day. No, I'm not making like a protein and a carb and a vegetable for 3 meals a day. We just don't operate like that. So this gives me a lid. You can use it as a serving tray, but I got this one because you can actually roast and cook on this too, which is how I'll use it. I will use it as a lid, as a roaster, and then as a serving tray, because whatever I'm roasting is coming right out to the table like this and staying on here, which eliminates dishes too. So these look incredible. And I threw in some poblano peppers and some Mexican peppers that needed to be used up, because why not? So all I'm going to do is let this cool, and then I'm going to add in the rest of the ingredients, and we're going to blend it and make salsa verde. And actually, before it cools, I'm going to go ahead and add in the onions so that they cook a little bit. I'm not going to do them yet because it's super hot. But before it's totally cool, while it's warm to medium warm, I'm going to toss in the onions so that they release some of their juices and tender up a little bit. So I don't want them to cook, but I also want them to not overpower the salsa, and so by having a little heat on them, it'll tone them down a little bit. And a lot of the things I found for our kitchen were actually like workbench stuff. The kitchen sink's an old workbench, and they work so well because they were designed to have your stuff out that you're working with, which is what our kitchen is a working kitchen. And then they've got really nice countertops because you would have needed, these are like antique pieces, you would have needed good solid surfaces that would last, not this particle board junk that's out there today. So the kitchen sink one is like this thick slab of wood, butcher block. This one's marble. So this one's great for making sourdoughs and baking, but I do need a little cutting board. This is just a cedar plank my kids use when they fish. So that's actually their, they fillet the fish on these. But this one's clean. It's a grill plank. So I'm cutting up onion for the salsa verde and for the dal. So I'm just going to dice all this onion up and put it aside. And the dal, I'm going to add the onion when we cook the spices. So I was just sitting here thinking about what else we need to use this week. It doesn't have to be today. But I have so many cucumbers and I have tons on the tower still. Don't judge my onion cutting skills. It's not easy on this little plank. So I need to use some cucumbers. I'm going to make a cucumber salad that we can snack on all weekend. And it's just cucumbers with like an Asian dressing, a little bit of tahini, amino acids. Those peppers and honey will be perfect in that to give it a little bit of sweet, spicy kick. So that'll be one way I can start to use those. And I may just carry that theme and just keep this cucumber salad going for the next week and a half until we use up all these cucumbers, and then we would have used all these peppers by then too. For my onion on that lid, I actually am shy a little bit of onion. I don't know why. I usually keep a huge stock of onion. So I may use red onion in this salsa verde and save the white for the dal, because I don't like the idea of red onions in my dal, but in the salsa verde it could be really nice. If these are snacking peppers, we have so many of these coming in that we just can't keep up with snacking on them. So these are the peppers that are going to go into the dal. I love doing peppers and radish, and I don't have any radish, but turnips work to replace the radish. So I'm going to do radish, turnips, turnip greens. I have some random greens right here I want to use up. They're wilted, but they're still fresh. I just harvested them yesterday. And a lot of these small peppers, and that will get tossed in with our dal when we finish the cooking. Some of these just came out super small. That's common when peppers first get started. So I'm just gonna chop them like that. No need to waste them. The larger ones I'll cut in half. That keeps all the seeds. I believe there's so much nutrition in seeds. We've been kind of accustomed or trained to remove seeds from things or to fear seeds. Seeds are good. When I fry peppers, I leave the stems on. They're so good, the stem, when you eat it fried. I mean, I guess anything fried is pretty good. So little peppers are a pain, but a bunch of little peppers is just the same as one big pepper. So I'm just grateful for any food we're able to grow from scratch. Anything we can do to avoid the grocery store and the things that they're putting on our food and in our foods, and how they're changing the genetics of food. And that is why I keep a stocked kitchen and have had to just learn. I mean, this is something I've had to just teach myself over time. First off, don't fear food. Don't fear herbs. I think we can have a natural respect for natural things, but we've been kind of programmed to fear. I hear it a lot. People message me and they're afraid to grow their own lettuce and eat it. They're afraid they'll get sick. And that's just because we've been programmed to think that. And it's actually the stuff that they're growing commercially. The reason why it makes people sick with some really bad things is because of the way it's farmed. So growing your own, you get the nutrition, you get the freshness, and you don't have all those contaminants that are being dumped in the water, in the soil, from the overhead spraying, all the things. Because they're raising them on near farms, and then the farmers will take the waste and fertilize with it and spray, and that mist goes over into the fields where the lettuce grows. That's why romaine is such a dangerous crop as far as like E. coli. So yeah, we don't need to fear homegrown food. This does take practice. And the way I initially learned was I started following recipes. And I like Oh She Glows. I'll put a list of some of my favorite books at the bottom of this if you want to check them out. Watching Instagram posts, following Instagram. I have a whole collection of recipes saved. And I'm not following them to the T. I'm just taking the concepts of them. And then when I have like peppers, this isn't traditional to dal, but that's okay because I can use this and make the dal the way I want it using the things I have. And so I'm kind of tweaking those to meet what we have available. And that comes with time. So you may just have to practice, practice recipes. And a turnip, for example, is a great one. I didn't know how to eat a turnip before I was a gardener. And even as a gardener for 20 plus years, I wasn't growing a lot of turnips. And I just thought they were this like really peppery, gross thing. And they're not. They're so good. They're incredible in recipes. They add so much flavor, texture. They're great raw once you get used to them. And we're just gonna put these in chunks. I'm actually gonna go harvest 4 more for this recipe. But I didn't know about turnips. They didn't teach me that in school. That it's a mega superfood, easy to grow, cheap. And you can't really buy them at the grocery store. I never see them anyway. Maybe at the farmer's market. I'm sure at the farmer's market. But I'm gonna cut the stems. And we're going to use those almost like an asparagus. So chunky cuts. All right, while the tomatillos cool a little bit more, and I need to cook more tomatoes. I'm going to roast more tomatoes, just regular tomatoes for a salsa. But let's deal with these banana peppers. We are going to do a refrigerator or counter pickling with these because I love pickled. I don't love pickled food except for pickled bananas. Oh my gosh, they're so good. I have some mushrooms that I'll probably just wait for later and some okra. Yeah, let's just take a look at this table. Hear that noise in the background? As the bread machine paddles have started spinning. It's going to spin. It did a rise and then it's going to spin and mix things and then it's going to rise again. These I'm just going to cut in slices. I don't long store these. Again, because, well, for one, I didn't grow enough of them. And 2, I'm just not really great at canning. Maybe someday. I haven't tackled that yet. But I also just want these to be a quick fridge pickle. And we will go through these in a couple of weeks. And my hope is that we will continue to have jars of them up until winter as more peppers come in. And then we might have to live without them through, late winter, early spring until they grow again, which is fine. There's some foods I think we need to have access to every day, year round, like greens, herbs, but some things can be left to being seasonal. Or next year I just gotta grow a lot more. If I decide come winter I'm really sad I don't have these. Alright, keep the seeds. All right, this is my recipe, but I don't make this very often, so I'm reading it off my phone. All right, we're gonna do equal parts white vinegar and apple cider vinegar to water. And we do need to heat this up because I'm adding sweetener. I'm gonna add honey. Is this jar big enough? Added my white vinegar. Now I'm gonna add apple cider vinegar. I'm just eyeballing this. Equal parts, and then equal parts water to this. And we want a tablespoon of salt per 1.5 cups of vinegar. I probably have 1.5 cups of vinegar. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, that'll do it. This is not perfect science. Alright, I'm going to cook that down. I need to add sugar. So I say anywhere from 1/4 the amount of liquid. So if you have 4 parts water, 1/4 of that part, or 1/4 of that part sugar. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So I think I have maybe 2 cups. So I'm going to go with 1/2 cup of a sweetener, and I am going to add a little bit of regular sugar because it just makes things better. And I don't need sweets or anything. This is my sweets. And then I'm going to add honey, and I'm going to add one of these. Really, the sugar is totally preference. Sometimes I don't do any sugar at all, and I just want them vinegary. Actually, I don't want this one super sweet because it's not spicy. I like my sweets with my spicy peppers, so that's probably too much, but it's fine. I was totally not even thinking that this is not like jalapenos. When I do this with jalapenos or even pickles, I like them to have a sweet side to them, but not so much my banana peppers. So hopefully I didn't add too much sweetness. I'm gonna try it in a second, because I just was not thinking when I did that. So yeah, you can make them sweet or not sweet. Really, it's just, I like the apple cider vinegar. Most recipes are just regular vinegar. I like the 1/2 and 1/2. Ooh. It's good. Actually, I don't taste the sweet at all. It actually just balances the acidity perfectly. All we're doing is melting the sweetener. So if you did this with no sugar, just make it warm, because you just want to pour warm over your peppers, not boiling hot, but maybe medium heat so they like preserve really quick. Once the peppers absorb the vinegar, they're not at risk of spoiling. I've never had them spoil like this, and I do this all the time. So there's our little jar of banana peppers. This goes on the counter. Running out of space, that's why I need another shelf. See? Cute. All right, we'll put it over here. I do not like pickled okra, so we're gonna pickle a cucumber. And take a nice firm cucumber. This is good because I need to use some of these cucumbers. I have a lot, and there's still a lot in the garden. I'm going to do really thin slices. And I'm going to push these down and crush them so they all fit, so we don't have any waste. And if you are new to from scratch cooking, especially with homegrown, it may take a minute for your taste buds to adjust. I'm not gonna lie and say I woke up and had a palate for all things homegrown. There's something in there. You know, it takes a while to get off of, if you've been eating like a standard American diet or processed foods. That does not, I mean, some people can just flip that overnight, change everything. I think that's incredible. For me, it was slow and steady. Now I can't eat that stuff. Like, I can't even go out to eat. We have some friends invited us out Saturday, and I looked at the menu and I want to spend time with my friends, but I'm not even interested because nothing on there is real food. It's total garbage, and this is a nice restaurant. But that's just the way it is. Like, this is real food. Just the more you get away from that kind of stuff, the more sensitive you can become to it and how it doesn't even taste good. It seems like when you're in it, I remember I would have like comfort food days where I'd want to go when we were newly married. We'd get like eggplant parmesan with a side of Alfredo from this Italian restaurant down the street. Like totally overindulged, just found so much comfort, craved that. And now I can't imagine eating that. Like, I would probably be so sick. The idea of it, the thought of it doesn't seem good. But that took time. That took getting away from it for a while and kind of changing that habit of finding comfort in foods like that. Now, I'm not going to say I don't find comfort in food. I think food is very comforting, and that is okay if it's the right food. Like, I can find comfort in these dipped in a homemade hummus or something really delicious, or put these on a sandwich, a pita full of veggies from the garden. Like, there's so many things, and this can be our comfort food. So isn't that beautiful? I didn't add spices or anything, just keeping it super simple. Just pickle. All right, and we used up all that brine, so now all we have left, we need to finish the salsa. I'm going to roast the tomatoes and turn those into something. The rest of this stuff is just some hot peppers and some okra. I'll cook the okra later for dinner. I like to just, oh no, we forgot a pepper. We'll just put that in with these. I like to just slice the okra and cook them in a little oil or a little vegan butter until they're crispy with salt. So good, so simple. No frying, no dipping. If I were gonna fry them, I'd do it in my sourdough discard. A little bit of vinegar left over. I'm gonna feed that to the chickens. We do need to make something with these mushrooms. But for now, I'm just put them on a plate and let them dry. All right, we needed some cilantro. That tank's out of water, so it's a little droopy. So I just added a little bit, and I'll deal with that tonight. I also watered the starts because everything's out in the sun, and it went from 54 this morning to really hot right now. Okay, I thought I was recording. Oops. So what I did was added the cilantro, a full red onion, I just quartered it, the peppers, or the tomatillos, and all the juices, and about 1.5 teaspoons of salt for this whole thing. And we're gonna go blend this and see what the flavor's like. I put in at least a cup of cilantro. So I'm hoping I don't have to add like cumin or anything, but let's go just see what regular, oh, and 2 jalapeno peppers that were de-seeded, 1 red, 1 green. Reds are the ones you use for sriracha. So they have a little different flavor profile. So let's just see what this tastes like. And if we need to add spices, we can. It's still a little peppery over here, it just got me. The bread smells so good. All right, again, that fan is my dehydrator. It's on the floor. I'm gonna be sharing some dehydrator content with you guys. I use mine as a way to preserve, but I actually use it as a way to eat a lot of food. So that'll be another video. All right, we're just gonna chop this on the 2. Oops. We made a little mess. I forgot to put garlic in here. All right, again, I'm not following a recipe just because I've done this But you know, if you're just getting started, just find some recipes, follow them the best you can, and the more you get familiar, the easier it gets. All right, let's cover this. Now that we know it's moving, I don't need to wallpaper my house with salsa. Here's what it looks like. It looks, well, I mean, if you like real food and you're used to what that looks like, it looks really good. My kids would say it looks like something from the bathroom. Let's taste it. Oh, it's spicy. I added some serious heat. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's sweet and creamy. Perfect. So we're done with this. I'm gonna let it cool, and I'll see you guys when we finish the dal. All right, I had to run errands. Now I'm back to food. Here's our loaf of bread. You can see it comes out perfect. Sometimes it's a little darker on top. Somebody actually cut into this and ate. Look at that. There's a slice missing. So they probably took it out before it fully browned, because it's normally a little more brown on top. But beautiful loaf. All right, I'm gonna fry up my spices. I'm gonna do mustard seed and coriander or cumin seed, turmeric, black pepper. I've got oil going. Turmeric. Our chili peppers. Diced jalapeno, onion, curry leaves. Typically use fresh ginger and garlic, but I am done. I'm like, it's been a long day and I just want this done. I didn't even add the spices in the right order. For real Indian cooking, you really gotta, there's like a whole art to it. I'm not great at it, but it still tastes good. All right, I do a little cheat at the end and just add some of this seasoning because it tastes good and I'm not that great at Indian food. All right, now I'm gonna put the dal in this pot and I'm gonna add all of my greens and my turnips and my peppers. First I'm gonna put those in and then I'm gonna put the dal in. And this is a great example of how I take recipes and just make them my own to meet what I have, because this is not traditional Indian dal at all, but it's a combination of it and it uses up tons of stuff that I have. This part's definitely not traditional, coconut milk, but this is what's gonna help cook all those vegetables before I put the dal in, and it just is so soothing and comforting. So I forgot to add lemon to my salsa. It's browning a little bit, so I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna jar those up and freeze them. One will stay in the fridge. Oh, it's so good, I just had a spoonful of it. All right, so we did that. Now we're just gonna wait on the dal, and that's our food prep. Oops. Didn't mean to do that.